Can I just say I agree with you about the freedom of the press? It's the newspapers I can't stand. It's what they do to people. It's all very well to have the theory. We're talking about practice. And I agree with you, Michelle, that the journalists are not necessarily the ones to blame. They're not the people with the politicians in their pocket. It's the owners. When we talk about the media, when we talk about freedom of the press, we're really always talking about who owns the press. These are the people that cut the mustard. When David Cameron cozies up to Rupert Murdoch, he does that, as Rupert Murdoch himself said, because Rupert Murdoch said, they come to me. Actually said, they come to me. They come to me because I have the power they need. That's why they do it. So I thought your speech on our behalf was brilliant. All the way I was with you. All the way you just stuck in there. Now I wonder if you can all help me here. Politicians have the illusion of power. The media have the reality of power. Do you know who said that? I did, just now. But let me give you a genuine quote from none other than a celebrated alumnus from this university, Anthony Sampson, the late Anthony Sampson. In 1962, he wrote a book called The Anatomy of Britain. And then much later, 2004, he did it all over again. And this time he had a more prosaic title, I think, Who Runs This Place? And the interesting thing was in that period from 1962 until 2004, he said the greatest standout difference between all of the changes that had occurred in Britain, the biggest difference of all was the power that the media had. They now ruled the roost in 2004 in a way that they didn't in 1962. Here's the key quote. Editors, journalists, and cameras have penetrated nearly all institutions, including Parliament, the monarchy, political parties, and Whitehall, demanding answers to irreverent questions, debunking their traditions, clamoring for openness. They were not separate limbs or membranes in the anatomy, so much as part of the lifeblood or the nervous systems. This was a media which has grown in power over that time, grown in power and insinuated itself into the polity in a way that it had never done before, and really makes the exercise of politics, which is really what we're talking about, so incredibly difficult day after day after day. Politicians enthrall to what the media require them to do. Yes, of course, ministers and civil servants have secrets and they attempt to guard them jealously, and they can spring policy surprises on us all. But no policy they wish to come up with can be enacted now without the media approving it. That's the pocket. That's why they've got you in the pocket, because you, the politician, have to consistently think, what will the media do to me if I try and put this forward? That's power. That's the real power. And it's not the power of the journalist. It's not the power that Michelle's talking about, her members, of whom I'm one, and happily to be so, now that she's got me back in. But the truth is, it's not the journalists who do that. The power lies with the owners, consistently. The owners operating through their editors, of course, who suddenly... It's strange, isn't it, how editors always know exactly what their owners want. It's a strange matter, that. When Rupert Murdoch decided he'd like to go to war, because he didn't go to war, he sent off the American government to do that. When he wanted to go to war, all 175 of his newspapers across the world said, yes, we think it's a good idea to go to war. He didn't need to ring the editors. They did. Oh, actually, there was one of the 175 who didn't. That was in Papua New Guinea because they didn't know there was a war. But that's a cruel, racist joke, and I apologize for it straight away. I withdraw that, Mr. President. But the truth is, they knew what their master wanted. That's the power of the media baron, which is really what we're talking about here today. governments, I think, I don't think you need to go back as far, perhaps, as Anthony Sampson in '62, but if we think really of the post-Thatcher era, and possibly even hers too, they required media assent, all governments, for what they need to do. They're in thrall, really, to a rampant media that takes every opportunity to turn the knife. Certainly, politicians as individuals know that. They know the power of the media to destroy them. I'll come back to that in a moment. But national newspapers, it's fair to say, are losing print sales, but they still have lots of power. They've not lost their power through that. And they also, Michael may not agree with this, probably does. They also set the agenda for broadcasters. Yes, broadcasters do interesting things. Michael's done many interesting things in confronting politicians, but it is generally the papers, and therefore the owners of those papers, who set the parameters, who set the agenda on which then politicians have to operate. When we talk about this motion, Mr. President, of British politics being in the pockets of the media, we don't mean that politicians themselves are hostage to the media, though I think there's something to be said for that. But it's the business of politics, the daily business of politics, that's constrained by the ravaging beast of the media, what Tony Blair called the feral media. When he first became, and he knew about it, when he first became leader of the Labour Party, he knew exactly who to cozy up to. He did all that. I think you made a remark about it, Paulina. He flew off to Australia to cozy up to Rupert Murdoch. He knew where the power lay. It didn't lay with other politicians and other people in Britain. It lay over there in Australia with good old Rupert. And his whole political strategy, from the moment he became leader, can really be seen not as a political strategy, it's a media strategy. Because that is the truth and the reality. To obtain power, to obtain the right to run the government, he realized he had to treat with the media. Cameron, of course, with some less success, but as much determination, has done the same. LOL indeed. When Blair was in power, the most energetic part of his Downing Street machine was that office run by his Director of Communications, Alastair Campbell. The number of professional PRs that were employed by Whitehall and in Westminster in the Blair era increased. Not because the PRs thought that they could do much else other than try and spin the media, compete against the media, because they knew they were treating with power. That's why they exist. That was the whole point. They must please the media beast, feed it, water it, stroke it, spin it, do anything but deal with it. That was the problem they faced. And what better example can we have of that than that poor woman, Jo Moore, press officer for the Transport Secretary, Stephen Byers, in Blair's government. On 9/11, the day of 9/11, she sent out an email saying, "This is a very good day to get out anything we want to bury," known as a good day to bury bad news. Of course, when this was revealed, she was reviled for having done so. But why did she need to feel that she needed to do that? That's the power for you. She knew, and the government knew, that they really needed to get around the media most of the time. This would be perhaps an unpopular policy proposal, yet once exposed to the glare of the media, it might not get through. So you needed to smuggle it out. This shows how bad things have become. The power the press has, they got it twice over there. First of all, they forced her into making that scary deal, and then when she was revealed, they forced her resignation. What's really happened is that we think the proper, and I agree here with Milton in broad terms, the proper, and Burke, the proper role of the press is skepticism, to hold to power to account. But what we've had is a press which has become cynical and even nihilistic, and dragged and degraded politics to the point where it becomes impossible to operate properly as a politician. I'll leave it there because I know I've won the argument.